Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Legal Smith Unleashed. I'm attorney Kurt Smith with Smith Legal Group, here today with my associate Tom Wells, criminal attorney extraordinaire. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing today, sir?
Not too bad. Any relation to Dr. Rudy Wells from the $6 Million Man?
No, but I wish.
So do a lot of the ladies out there. Let me be honest with you. So we are talking about Casey Anthony. Remember that case?
I do remember that case. That was a big headline case for many, many years.
Big headline case. And boy, for those of you who don't remember, Casey Anthony was a young mother of one, unmarried, living with her parents. And as the story goes, there was a police call made by Grandma Anthony, who said she was concerned because she hadn't seen her granddaughter in a month, and the mother hadn't been home in a month. They were both living with the grandparents, and the police finally came over, and it turned out not only were they missing for a month, but that there was a story about a car being impounded, and when they went to go get the car, it smelled, according to Grandma Anthony, of human decay flesh.
Right. Yep.
And as a result, there was at least a Florida-wide, Orlando-wide search, if not a nationwide search, and a nationwide interest in this young 2-year-old toddler's missing body. And where was she?
Absolutely. It was, what seemed like it should just have been local. It was a case that went national, if not international. I mean, everybody was talking about this case, no matter where you were.
Absolutely. And as the story goes, at the end of the day, Casey Anthony was not convicted of murder.
She wasn't. She was not convicted of murder. The jury at that time, and I would think a lot today as well, a lot of people want to know how the person died. And that the truth of the matter is the state of Florida could not prove how this young girl died.
Right.
And without being able to prove how she died, they couldn't prove who actually did it.
Well, and that was, I think, if you want to say, you're a criminal attorney, and so all hats off, okay? But, Kaylee Anthony was missing for a long time after she was reported disappeared. Eventually, she was found kind of in a wooded area, almost right behind the house.
Very close to the house.
It was off kind of a main street. There was a electrical worker, some kind of public worker that stopped to admire the nature, as it were.
Yes.
And stumbled across a human skull.
Yes.
That ended up being Kaylee Anthony.
That's right.
And not only was it this human skull, she was wrapped in a blanket whose matching blanket was in the house and put in a trash bag and basically dumped in the woods behind the house.
Correct. And I think a lot of what they had was, they have this body that they know who it is. We think it came from this house. But there was a lot of accusations that Casey's father had a lot to do with it, but he wasn't being charged at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe the jury fully believed a mother of one would want to kill their own child.
Well, I found this case absolutely fascinating because when the prosecution came out, they were going full bore after Casey Anthony, and they didn't have what they knew is that there was a little girl that died.
Yep.
And I think the genius, at least the legal genius of Casey Anthony's attorney, was that he came out and presented an entirely different scenario.
Correct.
And the scenario was that the 2-year-old child had by herself gotten out the back door, climbed up the ladder that was left down into this above ground pool, and drowned.
Right.
And that Casey Anthony and her dad found the body and conspired to hide the body so that Casey wouldn't get in trouble for child neglect. Now, that was the theory that came out at the trial.
Correct.
And the prosecution, literally, I believe, got caught with their pants down because they weren't expecting that scenario to play out. But I think the one thing that allowed that scenario to play out was when they actually found the body, when they actually found the skull and the human remains, there was zero soft tissue on the bones. It had been picked clean by scavengers. It had been picked clean by the animals in the way. And so there was no way to know whether she was, bludgeoned, whether she was strangled, whether she was drowned.
Right. And that was the big case for the jurors. They believed that she had a part in it, but nobody knew what exactly happened. And, beyond a reasonable doubt means exactly what happened. And
who, when, what, where, how.
Exactly. And they could not answer those questions. And if you can't answer those questions, by law, that person is to be found innocent.
There was no question that there was some kind of abuse or neglect.
Absolutely.
And in fact, she was convicted on charges of neglect.
Yeah, and some misdemeanors that she was found guilty of. But at the end of the day, she had already been in jail for so long that it was credit for time served. And quite honestly, a couple of years later, the appellate court actually overruled a couple of those misdemeanors, and she actually, instead of being guilty of 4, was only guilty of 2 at the end of the day.
Okay, and at the end of the day, so be it, right? But
Yep.
By the same token, we had 2 competing theories of how the baby died. Either it was Casey Anthony, or it was neglect and the child basically drowned.
Absolutely.
Or it was the one-armed man.
Right.
Essentially, right? I mean,
Exactly.
And so faced with that, here's the question, right? And I know it's hard because this was a case that was tried in the media.
Right.
Everybody that talked to anybody about anything about this case knew that Casey Anthony was guilty of murder, right?
Right.
She had murdered that child. But at the end of the day, the question for you, criminal attorney Tom, did the jury get the case correct?
Based off of the prosecution and what they said happened, I would say the jury did get it correct. I would say, however, I think the state of Florida, because it was such a big case, went after the biggest charge possible and did not charge the case correctly.
Sure, there could have been other charges that were made that were more severe than the 4 misdemeanors that
Correct.
they chose.
And I think she would have been found guilty of those charges.
I think probably they were, which is why she was convicted of those 4 misdemeanors, right? And in fact, I believe, I'm no legal expert, but I believe the state of Florida has changed their laws at this point to where if a child dies by neglect, it can be charged as a felony.
Absolutely.
And you can get up to 20 years for those types of crimes.
That's correct.
Specifically because of this case. Specifically because there was an overwhelming feeling that the jury got the verdict wrong.
There's a feeling they got it wrong because everyone has a feeling she did it. But again, the law is you're innocent until proven guilty.
Absolutely.
Florida did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt how this person killed their child.
Right. And essentially, again, one of the legal strategies was Casey's attorney essentially admitted she was neglectful.
Right.
Admitted she was a liar, right? That she had lied about all these things because she lied a lot. Absolutely. Now, they blamed that on her childhood. They blamed that on sexual misconduct of her dad. They blamed that on a lot of things that as shocking as those revelations were in the opening of the case, never got brought up again.
They didn't, but it was brilliant. It basically said, jury, we're going to tell you right now we're guilty of these 4 misdemeanors. Please find us guilty of those but you were not going to be able to say that we committed this murder.
Right. And you know whose fault it was? It was Grandpa's.
Yep.
All Grandpa's fault. If Grandpa hadn't have been such a horrible guy, probably Mom wouldn't have turned out this way. And, so have a little bit of pity on her because it's really not her fault.
Right.
Holy cow. Okay? There's something to be said for legal strategy. And with the corpse, not the corpse, the bones, the skeletal remains of the child in the condition that there were, we couldn't prove that there was a drowning, whether there was drowning or not.
Right. They couldn't prove any type of killing,
right,
other than we have a deceased body.
And so today there are essentially 3 legal theories that remain with people that talk about the case. What happened to Kaylee Anthony? Theory number 1. Mom killed her.
Mom had to kill her.
And she got away with it.
Yep. She's OJ number 2.
On purpose, right?
Yep.
Theory number 2, that she drowned, just like the defense said she did.
Right.
Because that's what they admitted to.
Right. Theory
number 3 was an interesting one because, in my experience, lies, they tend to grow, but they're usually based in truth, right?
Correct.
And when people would ask Kaylee Anthony what happened to the daughter, where she was during this time, she'd say, "Oh, she's being watched by Zanny the nanny."
That's right.
Well, what's Zanny? The street name for Xanax. And so the
Xanax,
theory
absolutely.
is that she's doping her child and basically leaving her home asleep while she's out partying, and maybe she OD'd the kid.
That's definitely a possibility that we couldn't even test for.
Can't test for it. There's nothing. What do we know now? She was guilty of a couple misdemeanors.
That's it.
That her child unfortunately and tragically died. That's what we know.
And the truth of what happened will probably never be known.
Well, unless somebody comes clean, right?
Right.
But, so fascinating case. Highly recommend if you want to go to see more about the case or review it. It's a fascinating case to kind of study and look at the legal theory, and some of the courtroom stuff was fantastic.
Absolutely.
I actually think the prosecution did a fantastic job. I think the defense did a fantastic job.
They both did it. They just, I believe one slightly outsmarted the other.
Outsmarted, right?
Yeah.
This is a game of Survivor, right?
Yes.
So outplay, outwit, outsmart.
Yep.
And wow. So
it was a big risk, but it paid off.
It paid off, and if you believe the tabloids, the defense really didn't think it was going to work. It was just one of those things, and it ended up. Look, but realistically, you couldn't prove it that they were wrong.
Right.
What's the legal theory behind that? I can't remember. Corpus delicti, right?
Corpus delicti.
Corpus delicti. You've got to show that a crime actually was committed.
Correct.
Before you can accept somebody's word that they committed a crime.
Right.
And we couldn't, because I was involved, right? I was on the prosecution team. We couldn't prove it. The prosecution couldn't prove it. And one of the unfortunate issues with a case like this being tried in the media is that there's an outrage all over the country about what happened. My understanding is that attorneys and jurors and judges, everybody's getting death threats. Like, how dare you, do this to, this poor little girl, and, her memory's being soiled. But the reality is, to the trained legal eye, the jury got it right.
Absolutely.
So, say what you want about that.
The jury in this case, I believe, actually followed the law and the rules. They didn't let their emotions take over. They didn't go with what a normal person watching it on the TV in another state would say, "Oh, this person's guilty as all get out." Just because someone died. They actually followed the law. Did this prosecution prove all the elements needed for first-degree murder? And they did not.
They did not. So why is that relevant today? Well, it turns out that Miss Casey Anthony has turned back up.
She has.
She's now crashing the social media scene as some kind of
She is a legal advocate.
She's a legal advocate. Please come to me, talk to me, listen to me, and I'll tell you how to get through it.
Yeah, she'll, whatever your issues are, she's there to help you navigate and where you need to go, what resources you need to be able to fix your situation.
And I guess had OJ thought of that, he might have done that too, right?
Right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Instead, he just kept playing golf and doing commercials for Avis or whoever it was.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So legal advocate. And so that's the real question today is, where do you get your legal advice, right? Boy, if I've heard the question one time, I've heard it 1,000 times. How do I know what you're telling me is true? Or the flip side of that same question, which is, I was talking to my brother, and he says, this is what's going to happen in this particular situation. Nevada, which is where we are, Nevada is a mom state, so mom's going to win 90% of the time, right? 100% of the time.
Right.
Or I've heard it every way. This is a dad state. Dad's going to win it 100% of the time. Or guys never get a fair shake, or you always get the shaft. And everybody from your mom, your dad, your brother, your cousin, everybody knows the law, 100%. Everybody's got an opinion on what you say you're going through, and everybody already knows what's going to happen. So why do I need you?
That's the beauty of it. Everyone thinks they know everything, and the truth is, some attorneys don't even know the law, let alone the general public.
There's a expression in the law, and it goes something like this: a good attorney knows the law. A great attorney knows the judge.
Exactly.
Now, you can take that a couple different ways, okay? Hey, I know the judge, so I got a little scratch and scratch going on the side. That's one way to take that. But the real way to take that is, look, I've practiced in front of some of these judges for 20 years.
Right.
I know the judge in that I've had 75 cases just like this was one in front of them. I know what they like. I know what they don't like. I know probably how they're going to rule, and so I know how to kind of attack your case.
And that's invaluable. I mean, knowing the judge is so huge. When you go to make any argument for whether it's criminal, family law, it doesn't matter. Just knowing what that judge wants to listen to is huge.
In fact, I had a consultation very recently, and it was grandma and great-grandma came in to see me. They wanted custody of a child. And it turns out that mom and dad had the kid taken from them by CPS, and the kid was eventually placed with paternal grandma, and now paternal grandma is blocking maternal grandma and maternal great-grandma from seeing the kid. What do we do?
Gotta get some grandparent rights in there.
Got to get some grandparent rights. Well, listen. So grandparent rights, in case you don't know, is a species of visitation rights that says I, as a grandparent, deserve visitation rights because mom, dad, or both are blocking my access to the child unreasonably. Okay? But does that even apply in this case? Because mom and dad have died.
Good question.
So now we've got a non-parent with some kind of rights over the child, whether it's placement through CPS, whether it's adoptive, they've adopted the child, whether it's a guardianship. I don't know, right? But now we've got these other grandparents coming in. They're saying, well, I want grandparent rights. And I'm saying, do you? Or do you want full custodial rights that you're going to share with paternal grandma? Mind-blowing, right? They're like, well, I didn't know that was possible. No, you didn't, right? But your sister said that this is how this should happen. Or I found out there was I've been doing some research online.
Right. You gotta love Google.
Listen, the University of Google is quite the teacher, but it is no match for understanding the nuances of the law and how they play against each other. Grandparent rights, the rights of grandparents to visitation, and full custodial rights, even if it's not joint custody, even if it's visitation only, they are dramatically different. And it's a dramatically different standard.
Right.
So, and still, as I'm talking to these people, like, well, maybe we'll just go get a form, fill it out.
Good luck with that.
There's no form that covers this, okay? There's no blanket scenario, because you've brought me a scenario that's fairly unique in the 20 years I've been doing this.
Absolutely, that's got to be a unique situation.
And so, look, the question, where do you get your legal advice? It starts to go to an attorney.
Has to. I mean, I deal with it all the time with what's called the inmate attorney.
Yes.
In custodies. Mm-hmm. You start talking to other inmates, and they, especially the ones that have been there a few times, they know everything. Mm-hmm. They'll tell you, oh, this case, this is what you're going to get, in this case, and everyone thinks the case is the same. Right. Everyone thinks, someone, just because it's a stolen vehicle, every stolen vehicle case is the same. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's not. None of them are actually the same.
Right.
People's histories are different, which have to take into account. Were you already on another case when you picked up this case? Which happens a lot, unfortunately, but it changes the outcome of the case. But yeah, always have to deal with, well, so-and-so said he had the same case and this is what he got. Why can't you get me the same deal? Or,
right.
Never listen to other people. I always start with an attorney. And
go from there,
go
right?
From there.
I mean, listen, I don't know about you, but I have won a ton of cases I should not have won. As I'm walking into the courtroom going, we don't have a prayer.
Absolutely.
And we walk out of there victorious. Holy cow, right? I have lost some cases, very few. Lost some cases I should have won.
Absolutely.
And part of that has to do with the judge. Part of that has to do with your client's demeanor on the stand. Yes. Part of that has to do with how litigious and how vexatious they are, throughout the course of their criminal or civil proceedings career.
Right.
It all plays into each other, and you can't know until you get there exactly what you're going to get.
Oh, absolutely. And it can change day to day. I've been in courtrooms, especially criminal courtrooms, where just depending on the mood of that judge that day will have an outcome, change the outcome of what you thought was going to happen.
Right.
And it's amazing. You just don't know.
It's absolutely fascinating. And so to sit there and go, well, here's what I hear, right? Here's what. That has zero bearing on where we are in the case today.
Absolutely.
In fact, you were involved in a case recently that I can remember. Something about a shooting?
Yeah. I've had a couple of cases with shootings, but yeah. That individual started talking to his friends, started talking to other people who were police officers, and they all thought they knew what the law was, and they told him, no, that's not right. He's wrong. Your attorney's wrong. You should be able to get this and this. And at the end of the day, we had a very long conversation. He went and talked to a couple other attorneys, and behold, he decided to stay with me because I actually knew what I was talking about. And it turned out great for him. He's not going to prison. He's out of custody. But, it's amazing how friends and family can try to screw things up more than help.
Absolutely. And again, it's generally based on this is what I heard, or
yeah, absolutely.
I read online that this particular charge is a charge of 4 to 10, so you're probably looking at 4 to 10 years.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. 4 to 10 years. Good defense, that means probation.
Oh, Tom. Yeah, that's true. And again, you've got to know your judge. So I remember one time I was doing a family case, and I had a guy come in, and essentially, as will happen in a lot of family cases, he wanted out of his child support obligation.
Right.
Okay? I'm just paying too much for child support. I don't want to do that. So can you file a motion for me to get me out of paying child support? I'm like, well, let's just see. Who's your judge? Boy, it's Matt Harder, right? Now, Matt's not with us anymore, and he was a great judge and a great guy. But boy, he hated people that came in and talked about child support, right? And so I go, well, let's take a look. Okay, maybe we can phrase this a little bit differently, right? Let's take a look and see what you've done. And it turns out this guy's been in there every 6 months for the past 2 years trying to change his child support. And looking at the orders reflect the fact that this guy's been in there every 6 months trying to change his child support. And the judge is getting more and more frustrated. Like, dude, you're a total clown. Why do you keep coming back? I told you I'm not doing it. No.
Right.
And so he wants me to go file it. And I say, look, here's the problem, okay? The judge got this aspect of the law wrong. He didn't do it right, okay? And probably he didn't do it right because he was frustrated with you. But he got it wrong, okay? So I can go in and I can do this for you. But I'd really rather do it another way. I'd rather tie child support in with some kind of custody modification, right?
Right.
Because if I do the custody, you've got a much better chance of winning. If I attack this strictly on a child support, with this judge, you are going to lose. And he's like, well, I don't have time to wait for this. I'm getting killed. I can't afford this. I've got to get out of this right now. So I said, look, if you really want me to do this, I will do it. But I'm telling you, this is not a good idea.
Right.
So we do it. And I know my judge, right? And I say, okay, he doesn't like the thing about child support, but he does like to think he's the smartest guy in the room, and he does like to, he likes the intellectual exercise, right?
Absolutely.
And so if I can frame this in a way where he sees the law that we're talking about, he understands the nuance that I'm getting to, and maybe he overlooks something, then he will overlook the fact that this is strictly a child support case, and we can have an intelligent discussion.
Right.
And so I draft this motion. I got to tell you, it was a masterpiece, okay? It was a brilliant 30-page motion on the issue of child support that explained to the judge why this particular issue shouldn't have been decided that way, why the law allows the judge to do something different, why Dad was entitled to that relief, and why this should have gone the other way, and please make it go the other way. And then the opposing side drafted a very poor opposition. I drafted an excruciatingly brilliant reply.
Perfect.
And we've got a court date coming up in 2 weeks, okay? 1 week later, I get a written decision by the judge saying, Mr. Smith, I really enjoy the aspects of the law that you've brought up, and I really enjoy how you said this and this and this and this. But you're still wrong, and here's why. And I hate child support cases, and I'm not changing it because Dad's been in here every 6 months for the past 3 years, and I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt coming in here doing this over and over and over again. In fact, if he comes back again, I will declare him a vexatious litigant, and he's not going to be able to come back before the court without the permission of the court.
That would be really bad.
So I go to my client, I'm so sorry. What do you want to do? Appeal. Really?
Oh,
really? Sure. It's that important to me. Now, keeping in mind, he's got like $300 a month he's overpaying, okay? He's spending now $15,000 to do this appeal. That's worth it. The $300 a month, that's not worth it. But the $15,000, oh, that's worth it, right? And you're sitting there shaking your head going, please don't do this,
Don't do
right?
this.
And he does it.
Give that money to your kids.
I'm going to tell you, 90% of the time, the appeals lose,
Right.
if not more. And sure enough, his appeal lost.
Right.
Because he said, look, the judge, had his discretion to rule the way he did, and we're not going to overturn him.
Right.
The
He was
end.
well within his discretion.
Yeah. And so what did he want to do? He wanted to go back and fight it again. I said, look, I'm sorry I can't do that, but I'll just do it myself. And as far as I know, last time I checked, he's still doing it himself.
Wow, that's
Different judge now.
a lot of wasting money on.
Yeah.
That could have been just given to the kids.
Yep. Well, listen, we are quickly running out of time. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe if you like what you see. If you do need some legal advice, please give us a call over at Smith Legal Group, 702-410-5001, and we will see you next time on The Legal Smith Unleashed.